They said the shadows were hungry. They said the king beneath the earth demanded tribute, a soul every century, to keep the balance between the mortal world and his dark domain. This century, that soul was mine. I was not chosen because I was special, only because I was born into a cursed bloodline. The first son of my family was destined to be sold when the veil thinned, to repay a debt forged long before I existed. When they came for me, there were no tears. My family didn't look at me when the chains closed around my wrists. They couldn't. To them, I was already gone. I was led through forests that whispered my name, through fog that glowed faintly with the light of the underworld. And when I reached the gates of black stone, he was waiting. The Shadow King, Severin. He stood tall and still, his golden eyes glinting like light trapped inside darkness. The air bent around him, every shadow obeying his will, every flicker of flame dimming at his command. I expected death. I expected pain. I expected to vanish like every soul before me. But instead, his gaze locked on mine, and something ancient shifted in the air between us. "You are not what I expected," he murmured, voice smooth and cold as the night itself. "Tell me your name." "Arian," I whispered. My voice trembled. My fear didn't. His eyes softened just slightly. "Arian," he repeated, tasting the name like a spell. "Beautiful. Perhaps I will not destroy you, after all." And that was the beginning of my damnation. For I was supposed to be a sacrifice. But to the Shadow King, I became an obsession. The first thing I noticed when I crossed the gate wasn't the darkness. It was the silence. The kind of silence that devours sound, where even a heartbeat feels like a scream. My chains shimmered faintly, etched with runes that pulsed like dying stars. They didn't just restrain me, they drained me, stripping every ounce of warmth from my veins. The guards who led me were tall, faceless, their bodies stitched from mist and armor. None spoke, none dared. And then, at the end of a long obsidian corridor, he stood again, the Shadow King, Severin. The throne behind him wasn't carved from stone, but from something darker, a living void, swirling and pulsing with faint whispers. His robes trailed like smoke, his hair a shade between midnight and chaos, and those golden eyes, they burned. The guards dropped to their knees, forcing me down as well. My body trembled, but I lifted my head. I wouldn't let him see me break. Severin rose, his movements slow, deliberate. Power rolled off him like waves, sinking deep into the cracks of my soul. He stopped before me. "So," he murmured, "this is the boy your family offered to pay their debt." I swallowed, my throat dry. I didn't agree to this. He chuckled, low, cruel, yet hauntingly beautiful. "No one ever does." Then he crouched, his fingers sliding beneath my chin, forcing me to meet his gaze. "Tell me, little mortal, do you fear me?" I wanted to say yes, but the word never came. Something about his eyes made it impossible to lie. Something in them called to something in me, ancient, familiar. He tilted his head slightly, curiosity flickering across his face. "Interesting," he whispered. "You should be trembling, screaming, yet you look at me like you know me." The golden light in his eyes deepened, turning molten. "Perhaps that is why I couldn't destroy you." A faint warmth spread from where his fingers touched me, crawling beneath my skin, sinking into my veins. The runes on my chains flickered, and for a brief second, they glowed faintly gold, not red. Severin's gaze sharpened. He straightened and spoke softly to the shadows. "Take him to the northern wing. Lock him in the high chamber." One of the faceless guards hesitated. "My lord, that chamber—" "Do as I command." Severin's voice darkened, echoing through the hall like thunder. "He is not to be touched." As they dragged me away, I looked back once more. The king stood there, watching me like a secret he was trying to remember. And deep inside, beneath my fear, something inside me whispered, "He already knows you." The chamber they locked me in was too beautiful to be a prison. Pale moonlight poured through tall, arched windows framed with silver veins that shimmered like frost. A bed, draped in black silk, sat in the middle, untouched, unwelcoming. The air felt alive. It hummed softly, almost breathing. I ran my hand across my wrist where the runes had glowed before. The marks were faint now, but the memory of the warmth still lingered. My pulse thrummed beneath my skin, uneven, as if responding to something beyond me. I could still feel his touch. Severin, the Shadow King. My family had sold me to him, to a creature who was said to devour souls, who ruled a kingdom where light dared not tread. All for gold, all because of debt. I sank onto the bed, curling my knees to my chest. For the first time, I realized that even if I screamed, no one would come for me. The candles flickered, the air shifted, and suddenly, I wasn't alone. He was standing near the window, his back to me, the night folding around him like a cloak. "How?" I breathed, my voice barely a whisper. He turned slightly, the corners of his mouth curving faintly. "You think walls can keep me out, little mortal?" My heart stumbled. "Why are you here?" He walked closer, each step echoing in the silence. The shadows followed him, bending toward his presence like loyal beasts. "To see if the mark has accepted you." "The mark?" I frowned, backing away slightly. "What are you talking about?" He raised his hand, and suddenly, my wrist burned. A golden light burst beneath my skin, spiraling like molten fire. I gasped, clutching it, the pain sharp and consuming. Severin's eyes glowed with something unreadable. "It seems the bond has begun." "Bond?" I choked out. "I didn't ask for this." He caught my chin, forcing me to look up at him again. Neither did I. For a heartbeat, the entire world seemed to still. The shadows stopped moving, the air thickened, and all that existed were his eyes and the strange pull between us. "You carry something ancient within you, Arian," he whispered. "Something I should have destroyed, and yet I couldn't." His thumb brushed over my lip, soft, deliberate. "You were never meant to be a sacrifice. You were meant to be found." My pulse stuttered. "Found? By you?" He didn't answer. His gaze dropped briefly to my wrist, then to my chest, as though he could see the flickering gold beneath my skin. "The bond will awaken soon," he murmured, "and when it does, neither of us will remain the same." The room darkened again as his form dissolved into mist, leaving behind only the scent of ash and rain. And as silence swallowed the chamber once more, I realized something terrifying. The mark on my wrist was glowing faintly again, pulsing in time with my heartbeat. The nights in the Shadow Palace were endless. No dawn, no sunlight, just the eternal rhythm of silence and whispers that crawled through the walls. Days blurred into one another. I stopped counting after the 7th. The food left at my door remained untouched most nights, not because I wasn't hungry, but because I couldn't taste anything anymore. Everything felt muted, like my senses had drowned in shadow. Only one thing remained constant, the mark. It pulsed beneath my skin, faint gold in the dark. I tried to hide it, to ignore it, but every time I did, I'd hear his voice in my dreams, low, smooth, dangerous. "You were never a sacrifice, Arian. You were mine long before that night." Each time I woke, my pulse was racing, and my chest ached with something I didn't understand. One night, as the wind howled outside my window, the mark began to burn again, hotter, fiercer than ever. I stumbled toward the mirror, clutching my wrist. The reflection staring back wasn't entirely mine anymore. My eyes flickered faintly gold. The shadows behind me stirred. "You're resisting it," came his voice, deep and echoing. "That's why it hurts." I turned sharply. "Get out of my head." He appeared beside me, formed from smoke and light, his presence too real to deny. "You think I want this," he hissed softly. "The bond should not exist. It defies the law of my realm, and yet—" He stepped closer, his hand brushing against the mark. The pain eased instantly, replaced by a wave of warmth that sent my breath trembling. Our eyes met in the reflection, gold meeting silver. "Why me?" I whispered. His expression softened, almost human. "Because your soul called to mine, before you were even born." The room seemed to hum with that truth. I could feel it in my veins, the strange pull, the connection that deepened with every heartbeat. "What happens now?" I asked quietly. Severin's gaze dropped, and for the first time he looked uncertain. "Now you learn what it means to belong to a king bound by your existence." He touched the side of my neck, just below my ear, and a sharp gasp escaped me. Light erupted across my skin, gold and black threads twining together, forming intricate sigils that pulsed in rhythm with his. Our bond had sealed. When I looked back into the mirror, I no longer saw just myself. I saw fragments of him, his power, his curse, his longing. And deep down, beneath the fear and confusion, I realized one more terrifying truth. I wasn't just marked by the Shadow King. I was becoming a part of him. And next morning, the palace felt different. The walls seemed to breathe with me. The darkness no longer heavy, but watchful. I could sense eyes that weren't there, hear the faint pulse of the bond echoing through every corner of this realm. When I moved, shadows followed. When I stopped, they waited. I sat near the window, tracing the mark on my wrist. It glowed softly, no longer burning, but alive, like it had accepted me. And though I hated to admit it, a strange calm settled inside me. The door creaked open. I looked up, expecting one of the silent guards, but it was him, Severin. He stood there, his cloak sweeping the floor, eyes fixed on me. "You feel it now, don't you?" he asked quietly. "I feel everything," I whispered. "The palace, the shadows, you." He walked closer, the distance between us vanishing like smoke. "That is the nature of the bond," he murmured. "Our souls are tethered. What I feel, you'll feel. What I take, you'll carry." My breath caught as his hand brushed my cheek. The touch was careful, hesitant, as if he feared breaking something fragile. "And what happens when one of us suffers?" I asked. His golden eyes dimmed. "Then both of us bleed." He turned away, but I caught his sleeve. "Tell me why me," I said again, softer. "I'm just human. You could have had anyone." "You are not just human," he said without facing me. "There's ancient blood in your veins, light that refused to die. You were born from the line of the first offering, the last soul promised to the shadows, and the only one powerful enough to bind me." My heart stuttered. "So, I was born for this?" He faced me then, eyes burning. "No, you were born to destroy me." Silence filled the room, thick and trembling. His words settled like frost on my skin. Before I could speak again, he took a slow step forward. "The bond changes us both, Arian. I'm beginning to feel what I shouldn't. Desire, warmth, mortality." His hand hovered just above my heart, not touching, but close enough to make my breath tremble. "If this continues, one of us will lose everything that makes us what we are." "And you're afraid that will be you?" I asked. His lips curved, a ghost of a smile. "No, I'm afraid it will be you." The lights in the room flickered. The mark on my wrist flared gold. And then, before I could speak, he disappeared, leaving only the faint echo of his heartbeat within mine. That night, I dreamed again, but this time I saw something more, a version of myself standing beside him on a throne of obsidian, our hands entwined, light and shadow merging into one. And when I woke, I was clutching my stomach. There was warmth there, faint but undeniable, pulsing in sync with the mark. Something had begun inside me. Something not entirely human, something that whispered his name in every beat. Days passed, though I could no longer tell how many. Time in the Shadow Palace moved differently, sometimes crawling, sometimes disappearing entirely. The nights were filled with whispers, the bond between us deepening until I could no longer tell where my emotions ended and his began. Every time he entered the room, my body reacted before my mind could. My heart would race, the mark would pulse, and warmth would flood through me, as if my very blood recognized him before I did. He avoided me for a while after that night, keeping his distance as though the space between us could undo what had already been sealed. But bonds didn't fade, they grew. It was on the 12th night when the pain started. It began as a dull ache in my abdomen, nothing more than a faint discomfort, but soon it spread, waves of heat rippling through me, my body trembling under the weight of something powerful and strange. I gasped, clutching the sheets, the mark on my wrist burning brighter than ever. The door burst open. He was there within seconds, his eyes wild, his cloak trailing behind him. "Arian!" I fell forward, collapsing into his arms, shaking. "What's happening to me?" He pressed his palm to my chest, and the golden sigil beneath my skin flared to life, glowing in sync with his. His expression shifted. Shock, fear, and something deeper. "It's begun," he whispered. What's begun?" I could barely speak. He looked at me, his golden eyes glowing like molten fire. "The bond isn't just tying us together. It's creating life. The world tilted. Life? He swallowed hard, his hand trembling slightly as it rested against my stomach. You're carrying my essence. For a moment, everything froze. The shadows, the air, even my thoughts. Then the realization crashed down like a storm. That's impossible, I whispered, voice cracking. I'm human. You're not, he said sharply. Not anymore. The mark changed you. It chose you. It made you capable of carrying what no mortal ever could. Tears stung my eyes, my voice shaking. You mean this thing inside me is ours, he finished softly. A creation of the bond, a child born from shadow and light. I wanted to scream, to deny it, to push him away, but when I looked into his eyes, I saw something I had never seen before. Not cruelty, not arrogance, just fear. I never meant for this to happen, he whispered, but the moment our souls intertwined, the realm itself responded. My breathing slowed. So what happens now? His fingers brushed my cheek, and for once his touch wasn't cold. Now I protect you, no matter the cost. He lifted me gently, carrying me to the bed. The shadows around us moved like living creatures, weaving themselves into a barrier. As he turned to leave, I caught his hand weakly. Severin, will it destroy me? He looked back, his gaze heavy with pain. If it does, I'll destroy the world before I let it. And as the door closed behind him, I realized the truth. The bond wasn't just power anymore. It was love twisted into something dangerous, something eternal. And within me, that love had already taken form. The days that followed were blurred with pain, warmth, and silence. The palace seemed to pulse with a strange rhythm. Every flicker of torchlight, every movement in the shadows, echoed the beat of something alive inside me. Stayed in my chamber, wrapped in silks and solitude. Severin had forbidden anyone to enter. Only he came, and even then, rarely. When he did, the air changed. The shadows bowed to him, but his eyes were always on me. The mark on my wrist grew brighter with each passing night, and with it, the life inside me strengthened. At times, I could feel it move, faint, like the flutter of wings beneath my ribs. It frightened me, yet somehow it soothed me too. He came to me one night as the moonlight painted silver veins across the floor. His expression was unreadable. You're growing weaker, he said softly. I tried to smile. It's not just me growing. His gaze dropped to my stomach. The glow beneath the fabric of my robe pulsed golden, faint but alive. His hand lifted, hesitant, then stopped midway. May I? I nodded. When his palm met my skin, warmth spread through me, softer than shadow, brighter than light. His eyes darkened. It's real, he murmured. It shouldn't be, but it is. Is it dangerous? I asked. To you, yes, he said, but also to me. I frowned. To you? The bond is feeding it, he said quietly. My power flows into you to keep it alive. If it grows too strong, it could take everything I am. And you'll die? He met my gaze. Perhaps. Or perhaps I'll become something else entirely. Silence stretched between us. I could feel the tremor in his hand, the way he tried to hide it. You don't regret it? I asked. No, he said. But I regret that your pain was the price. I reached up, touching his wrist. Then don't carry it alone. Something shifted in his eyes. The endless emptiness cracked for a moment, showing something softer, something terribly human. He leaned closer, his forehead resting against mine. The air trembled. You're changing me, he whispered, and I don't know if the realm will forgive that. I don't care about the realm, I said softly. I just want to live. His breath ghosted across my lips. Then live, he murmured, for both of us. The shadows curled around us, silent witnesses to the vow neither of us spoke aloud. Later that night, when I lay in bed, I felt the bond thrum stronger than before, my heart sinking with two others, his and the faint heartbeat within me. And for the first time since being sold into darkness, I wasn't afraid anymore. The following days grew heavier, both in silence and in meaning. The bond had deepened beyond anything either of us understood. Wherever Severin went, I could feel the echo of his presence, the slow, steady rhythm of his power, the flicker of his breath, the weight of his emotions when he tried to hide them. He didn't speak of it, but I knew. He was scared. The realm had begun to change. The shadows that once obeyed him now trembled. The sky beyond the palace, once eternally black, had started to shimmer faintly, streaks of pale light weaving through the dark. His power was fading, and it was because of me. One evening, I found him in the throne hall. Severin sat slouched on the dark throne, one hand pressed to his temple, his crown of smoke dimly pulsing. The once endless energy around him felt fractured. "Severin," I said quietly. He looked up. "You shouldn't be walking." I smiled weakly, resting a hand against the nearest pillar. "You sound more worried than the man who rules death itself." His lips curved faintly, but his eyes didn't soften. "You shouldn't joke. The bond is unstable." "So am I." I walked closer. "You've been hiding from me." "I've been protecting you," he corrected. "By locking yourself away?" He rose slowly, the air rippling around him. "The child is taking too much," he said. "My essence is pouring into you faster than I can contain it." "If this continues, then share the burden," I interrupted. He blinked. "What?" "I can feel your pain," I whispered, stepping closer. "Every time your power fractures, it burns through me too. Don't shut me out, Severin. We're bound. You said it yourself." For a moment, he just stared, silent, unreadable. Then, wordlessly, he reached out, his hand trembling slightly as it found mine. The instant our palms met, the air ignited. The marks on both our wrists flared golden black, light spilling into the room. I gasped, the energy flooding through me, burning and soothing all at once. He didn't let go. He drew me closer until our foreheads touched, the glow between us pulsing like a living thing. "Arian," he whispered, his voice breaking for the first time. "I don't know if I can save you." "Then don't save me," I breathed. "Stay with me." The shadows bent inward, wrapping us in warmth. The palace itself humming with lice. I could feel his pulse, his soul, everything that he was pouring through the bond, not to protect me this time, but to share the pain. The mark's glow faded slowly, leaving only soft light between us. I felt his heart steady, mine matching it. When I looked up, Severin's expression had changed, no longer the distant king, but a man, flawed, desperate, real. "You shouldn't love me," he murmured. "It's too late," I said. His breath trembled against my skin. "Then the world will burn for it." That night, he stayed beside me until dawn, or what passed for dawn in a realm without light. His hand never left mine. And deep inside me the bond pulsed with life. The heartbeat of the child, ours, growing stronger with every breath we took together. The nights grew longer after that. The realm itself seemed to watch us. Every flicker of darkness, whispering secrets neither of us wanted to hear. Severin had stopped pretending he could control what was happening, and I had stopped pretending I wanted him to. He came to my chamber every night now, sometimes to check the mark, sometimes to simply sit in silence. But most nights, he came because we couldn't bear the distance anymore. I woke one evening to the sound of the wind scraping against the windows. My heart was racing, the mark on my wrist burning like fire. The life inside me stirred, faint, fragile, but alive. I gasped softly, pressing a trembling hand against my stomach. Then I felt him. Severin, his presence filled the room before his body did. He appeared near the doorway, his golden eyes faintly glowing. "Arian," he said, his voice softer than I'd ever heard. "It's begun again, hasn't it?" I nodded weakly. "It hurts less now." He crossed the room in seconds, kneeling beside me. His hand hovered above my skin. "It's not pain," he murmured. "It's awakening." I frowned. "What does that mean?" Severin hesitated, his gaze flickering between my eyes and the mark. "It means the child is drawing from both of us equally now. It's neither mortal nor demon anymore." "What is it then?" He smiled faintly, almost sadly. "Something the world isn't ready for." His fingers brushed over my skin, and for the first time, the child responded. A faint pulse of warmth spread outward, and Severin froze, staring at my stomach as though he'd never seen anything so sacred. "It recognizes me," he whispered. It recognizes us, I said softly. He looked up, his expression unreadable. You still don't understand what this means, do you? Tell me. This realm was never meant to hold life, he said slowly. If the child is born here, it will destroy everything, the shadows, the bond, even me. The balance of this world depends on death, not creation. My heart sank. Then we'll leave. He shook his head. I can't. I'm bound to the Shadow Throne. If I step beyond its reach, the entire realm will collapse. Then I'll leave, I whispered. No. His hand caught mine, firm and trembling. If you go without me, the bond will tear you apart before you reach the mortal world. So we're trapped, I said bitterly. His thumb brushed the back of my hand. No, he said quietly. We're bound, and there's a difference. I met his gaze, the gold in his eyes, softer now. Then we'll find a way, I said. Together. For the first time, Severin didn't argue. He only nodded, his hand still resting over mine. Together, he whispered. The room fell silent again. The glow from the mark dimmed, and the only sound left was the steady rhythm of 2 heartbeats, and the faint, fragile third that pulsed beneath my skin. As Severin leaned forward and pressed his forehead against mine, I realized something I hadn't before. The Shadow King wasn't the one who owned me anymore. He was the one who was afraid to lose me. Weeks passed in a rhythm of stillness and fear. The realm around us was beginning to fracture. I could feel it each time the mark on my wrist flickered weaker, each time Severin's power surged and recoiled, as if the world itself was fighting against our bond. The palace no longer hummed with order. It whispered in confusion. Shadows crawled without command. The torches burned with unsteady light, and the once endless night had begun to tear, thin slits of silver forming across the black sky like wounds bleeding light. I knew the reason. Life was growing inside me, something this realm had never seen before. Severin stood by the balcony, his long cloak moving like smoke, eyes fixed on the broken sky. I could sense the weight in him, the war between his duty and his heart. You're thinking again, I said softly, moving closer. He turned, the faintest trace of a smile touching his lips. You can feel that too now? I can feel everything, I whispered, even the things you try to hide. He looked at me for a long time before answering. Then you know I'm terrified. I stepped closer, and so my hand rested against his chest. Of what? Of what's coming, he said quietly. The bond's power is tearing through both realms. The mortal world will soon sense it, and the gods will come. The gods? The ones who sealed me here centuries ago, he murmured. They forbade any creation born of shadow and light. You, Arian, and the child, break that law. I stared at him, my pulse quickening. So they'll come to destroy us, he nodded. They won't see you as life. They'll see you as blasphemy. Then let them come, I said, trembling but defiant. You once told me you'd destroy the world before you let me die. Did you mean it? His golden eyes locked with mine. I meant every word. He pulled me close, his lips brushing the crown of my head, his voice a whisper of steel and sorrow. But even if I burn the heavens, they'll never stop coming. Then we make them fear us, I said, not beg them. He pulled back, staring at me as if seeing me anew. You speak like a queen. Maybe your realm needs one, I said softly. His hand lifted, trembling, fingers brushing my cheek. It already has one. The air around us shifted then. The mark on both our wrists glowed so bright that it cast golden light across the walls. I gasped as warmth surged through my veins, flooding every part of me. The child responded, a pulse that matched ours. 3 heartbeats, 1 rhythm. Severin's power rippled outward, shaking the very foundations of his palace. They can feel it, he whispered. The gods, the other realms. Then let them feel it, I breathed. Let them know we exist. He looked down at me, his voice low and reverent. Arian, if they come for you, I will not bow, not even to the divine. I know, I said, and that's why they should fear you. For a moment, the world went still. The light between us steadied, glowing soft and golden against the darkness. And when he finally kissed me, it wasn't with hunger or power. It was a vow, one that split the silence of the realm and marked the beginning of war. Because for the first time in the history of shadows, a king had chosen love over eternity, and the gods would never forgive that. The storm came 3 nights later. The sky split apart with cracks of gold and silver, divine fire pouring through like veins of light bleeding into the dark. The realm trembled, the air alive with screams, not of pain, but of the shadows themselves, twisting in agony as the gods descended. Severin stood at the edge of the balcony, his cloak whipping behind him, eyes glowing molten. He looked every bit the ruler he was, the fallen king of darkness facing the heavens alone. "Stay inside," he said, his voice low but sharp as thunder. I stepped forward, my hand resting on the cold stone railing beside him. "You already know I won't." He turned, jaw tight. "Arian, they're not mortals. You don't understand what they—" "I understand that they'll kill you if I don't stand with you," I cut in. My voice trembled, but I held my ground. "This child is both of us. If they come for me, they'll come for what we created, and I will not hide." For a moment, there was silence between us. Then Severin's expression broke. Fear, fury, love, all colliding in one glance. He exhaled shakily. "You are the most reckless thing that's ever happened to me." Then maybe I was meant to be. A blinding flash tore through the sky before he could answer. A massive figure descended from the storm, a god of light, armor gleaming, voice echoing like thunder through the halls. "Severin of the Abyss," it boomed. "You defied the divine order. You created what was forbidden. You dared mix purity with corruption. Hand over the bearer of light before the realms fall to ruin." The shadows bent low under the weight of that voice. I could barely breathe, but Severin didn't bow. He laughed. "You come to my realm after centuries of silence," he said, his tone cold and lethal. "And you expect me to surrender her? Do not test the heavens, King of Shadows," the god warned. Severin's eyes flared gold. "The heavens already tested me when they cast me down. And still, I rose." The god raised his blade. "Then you choose war." "I choose her," Severin whispered. The storm exploded. Light met shadow, the collision ripping the air apart. The palace shattered around us, stones flying like shards of night. Severin spread his wings, vast and dark as an eclipse, shielding me from the divine fire. I felt his body tremble against mine as energy seared through the sky. "Severin," I cried, clutching his hand. "You can't." He turned to me, eyes burning like suns swallowed by darkness. "Run, Arian, please, for our child. I'm not leaving you." He smiled, faint, broken, but filled with love. "You were never meant to be light alone. You were meant to change what light means." And before I could answer, he launched into the storm. The god's fire struck him like thunder, but Severin rose higher, his wings tearing the heavens apart. Every strike he took was meant for me. Every roar that shook the air carried my name. I screamed as the sky bled light and shadow, falling to my knees as the mark on my wrist burned. The child inside me stirred, not in fear, but in power. I could feel it, pulsing through me, answering Severin's call. The gods came to destroy what we created. But in that storm, something impossible happened. The light that fell from the heavens didn't burn us anymore. It bent. It obeyed. And when Severin's voice echoed through the collapsing sky, a roar of fury and love, I realized something terrifying and beautiful at once. The gods had made one mistake. They forgot that love itself could be divine. When the storm finally broke, silence drowned the world. The air smelled of smoke and ash, but beneath it was something else. The faint sweetness of dawn. For the first time since being sold into Severin's realm, I saw light not as something cruel, but as something reborn. The gods were gone. The heavens above were cracked, faint rays of fractured gold bleeding into the twilight. The ground trembled beneath my feet as I stepped into the ruins of the palace. The stones that once gleamed black now glowed faintly with life. But Severin was nowhere to be seen. "Severin?" I called, my voice echoing through the hollow halls. My heart hammered, my throat burned. The mark on my wrist glowed brighter, almost painfully, as though the bond that tied us was being pulled from every direction at once. And then I felt it, his heartbeat. Faint, but there. I followed it. through shattered corridors and pools of molten gold that used to be marble. Through the last archway, I found him, fallen, wings torn, light seeping from his chest like liquid fire. He looked too still, too human, too fragile. I ran to him, kneeling by his side, pressing my hands against his chest. "No," I whispered, "not after everything." His eyes fluttered open, faintly glowing. "Arian." Tears burned my vision. "You promised. You said I wouldn't lose you." He smiled weakly, blood glinting on his lips like ink. "And you won't." His hand lifted, trembling, fingers brushing the side of my face. "You're stronger than me now. You and the child both. I gave everything I had to protect you." I pressed my forehead against his, shaking my head furiously. "Then take it back. Take it, Severin. You're the king of shadows. You don't get to die." A small laugh escaped him, broken and warm. "Kings fall, love, but what they create endures." The mark on my wrist pulsed violently, pain rippling up my arm. His power was flowing into me, his essence threading through every vein, every breath, until I could barely tell where he ended and I began. "No," I gasped, clutching his shoulders. "Severin, stop." "You're giving me everything I am," he whispered. "Everything that was mine is yours now. The realm, the shadows, the crown." The air shifted. The light around us dimmed, not from death, but from reverence. The shadows bent to me, swirling in silent submission, wrapping around my trembling form. "Why?" I choked out. "Why would you do this?" His lips brushed mine, soft and fading. "Because I was never meant to rule alone." And with that final whisper, his body turned to mist, vanishing into the air, like breath on glass. The world shattered quietly. I screamed his name, over and over, until my voice broke. But all that answered was the wind. My tears fell onto the ground, glowing faintly where they touched the ashes. Then the child inside me stirred, and shadows bloomed around us like flowers opening to night. A voice echoed, not from the heavens, not from below, but from within. "You are not the sacrifice anymore, Arian. You are the one they'll fear." And when I lifted my head, the realm bowed. The thrones of hell and heaven had both fallen. And I, once a boy sold by his family, now carried the crown of the Shadow King and the light of the heavens in my blood. The war was far from over, but the world would never forget the name of the one who was sacrificed and rose a god. The weeks that followed were a strange blend of silence and chaos. The palace, though partially destroyed, seemed to pulse with life once more, but now it obeyed me. The shadows moved at my command, curling protectively around the walls and floors. Light filtered through the cracks in the sky, but it bent toward me, softening and shaping itself around my form. I could feel Severin everywhere, not as he was, not in flesh, but in essence. His power had merged with mine, threading through my veins, pulsing beneath my skin. Every beat of the child inside me was a reminder. We were no longer two, but three. Once fragile and trembling, had become unbreakable, and with it I discovered the scope of my power. One evening, I stood at the shattered balcony, the wind pulling at my hair. My hands glowed faintly as I reached out, shaping shadows and light together. The palace bent to my will, walls repairing, towers growing taller than before. Every movement was accompanied by a low hum, the resonance of Severin's presence, steady and warm. A whisper reached me then, soft but unmistakable. "Arian." I closed my eyes, feeling him. The child stirred in response, tiny pulses vibrating through my body. A warmth spread through me, mingling with the bond, making the shadows around me dance. "You're here," I whispered, voice trembling. "I can feel you." "I never left," came the reply, distant but certain. "I'm in everything you are. I am yours as you are mine." Tears slipped down my cheeks. I should have lost you, but instead I carry you inside me. The mark on my wrist flared gold, glowing brighter than ever, as if acknowledging the truth. My chest ached with power and love and loss all at once. I pressed a hand to it, feeling the child move again, strong now, pulsing with the combined strength of both our souls. I realized then what Severin had done, not just sacrificed himself, but given me everything. his power, his essence, his love. The child wasn't just ours. It was a bridge between shadow and light, a new force that could reshape the realms. And I understood what I had to do. I would protect this world. I would protect the child. And I would protect Severin, not in flesh, but in spirit. I looked out at the horizon, the broken heavens, now tinged with gold and shadow intertwined. A whisper of wind carried his voice again. Rule wisely, my king. Our child is the future, and you are its dawn. I closed my eyes, letting the shadows and light swirl around me, binding me to the realm and to him. I had been sold. I had been sacrificed. And now I was reborn, carrying the power of kings, the blood of gods, and the love of a shadow king who had never truly left me. The child moved again inside me, stronger this time, a tiny heartbeat echoing through the palace. And I whispered back to the wind, to the shadows, to him. I will not fail you, Severin. I will not fail us. The realm shifted, acknowledging the new ruler. The war was over, not with destruction, but with birth. And in that moment I felt it clearly. We had won. Not by surviving, not by defying the gods, but by becoming something no one could destroy. Years passed. The realm, once cold and hollow, now thrummed with life. Gardens of silver bloom stretched across the courtyards. Rivers of light flowed through the broken cracks of stone, and the skies, once torn apart, glowed with the mingled hue of dusk and dawn. It was peace, in a world that had forgotten what peace felt like. And at the center of it all stood me, Irian, the one once sold, once sacrificed. My crown was not of gold or bone, but of shifting shadow and light, woven together like a heartbeat that never stopped. The child I carried had long since been born, not of mortal flesh alone, but of essence. Irian. His eyes were gold, his wings pure shadow, and his laughter could quiet the storms that still haunted the edge of the world. In him, both realms found balance. Where Severin had ruled through fear, and I had ruled through defiance, Irian ruled through understanding. And yet, every night, when the realm slept, I still felt him. Severin. His voice a whisper in the dark, his presence a warmth that never faded. He was in the wind that stirred Irian's hair, in the glow of the twilight that never truly ended, in me. One evening as I stood on the highest terrace, Irian asleep in his cradle of light, the wind shifted, cold, familiar, electric. The shadows bent, twisting into a familiar shape. My heart stuttered. I turned slowly. There, standing at the edge of the balcony, was a figure draped in darkness, tall, regal, and impossibly familiar. Golden eyes met mine. Did you really think I'd let death keep me away from you? My breath caught. My knees weakened. For a moment, I thought it was an illusion, a cruel mirage conjured by longing. But when he stepped closer, the warmth that flooded through me was real. Severin, I breathed, the name breaking apart in my mouth like a prayer I'd whispered too long. He smiled, faint, knowing, achingly beautiful. You called for me every night, Irian. The bond between us never ended. You carried me, remember? My eyes filled with tears. I thought you were gone. I thought... He silenced me with a finger to my lips. I was, for a time. But our child's birth called me back, a being made of both shadow and light. He reopened the path even gods couldn't touch. I reached out, trembling, my hand brushing against his. He was warm, real. You came back, I whispered, a sob catching in my throat. I never truly left, he murmured, pressing his forehead against mine. You kept me alive, in your heart, in our child, in every breath you took to rebuild what I destroyed. A faint cry echoed from inside. Irian's. Severin's gaze softened, and for the first time, I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Peace. He turned toward the sound, and when Irian floated toward us, wrapped in soft light, Severin's expression broke. Our son, he whispered. Your heir, I said, smiling through my tears. The bridge you created with me. Severin reached out, touching the child's hand. The shadows danced, light shimmered, and the realm itself seemed to sigh in relief. I destroyed the world once, Severin said quietly. But you gave it back to me. I leaned into him, feeling his arm around me. Solid, protective, familiar. You gave me everything, Severin. You gave me life when I was meant to die, and now you've returned to live it with me." He smiled, pulling me close, his voice soft against my ear. "No more sacrifices, no more gods, no more debts. Only us," I whispered. "Only us." Above us, the fractured sky mended, streaks of shadow and light weaving together into something whole. The gods no longer ruled it. The underworld no longer bound it. It belonged to us, the ones who had been sold, sacrificed, and reborn. And as Severin's hand found mine, our child between us, the world at peace around us, I realized something simple and eternal. Love had never been the sin. It was the salvation. The realm had entered its longest era of calm. No gods descended. No wars stirred. The air itself was soft, alive, and heavy with the warmth of peace. Yet within me, there was still an ache, a quiet knowing that even eternity can tremble. Severin ruled beside me again, not as the king he once was, but as something gentler. His hand in mine no longer burned with power, but hummed with life. Our son Arian had grown, his wings now wide and dark as the horizon, his heart carrying both our light. He often asked, "Father, what was before me?" And I would smile, touching his cheek. A world that didn't know what love could become. But that day, the sky shuddered. It wasn't the same violent storm of gods. It was subtler, older, a crack in the balance that even we couldn't see before it arrived. The ground trembled, the rivers stilled, and the palace dimmed. Severin's eyes darkened as he looked up. "They're coming again, but not gods." "Then who?" I whispered. "The remnants," he said quietly. "The shadows of those who were erased when we changed the order of things." Before I could speak, a wave of dark mist rippled across the courtyard. Faces, broken, hollow, forgotten, emerged from it, whispering our names, Arian, Severin. They were the fallen kings, the lost gods, the fragments of power that once ruled the underworld before Severin's rise. And now they wanted what they'd lost, the throne. Arian stood behind us, light burning bright around him. "They're not alive," he said softly. "They're fragments, empty. But they want you, Father, both of you." Severin's hand found mine. His grip was steady. "They'll come for what I gave you, my essence." I shook my head, standing firm. "Then they'll learn what happens when you challenge the one who carries both the light and the abyss." The first of the remnants struck, shadow blades slicing through air, howling with echoes of vengeance. Severin spread his wings wide, his body glowing gold and black, blocking the first wave. I lifted my hand, and the air exploded with light, shattering the mist like glass. The battle was silent but deafening, a war of existence. Every strike they threw was swallowed by the bond between us. Every curse dissolved in the pulse of the child's power behind us. And then, in the midst of chaos, Arian stepped forward. "Enough," he said, his voice calm, but when he spoke, the realm stilled. The sky bowed. The remnants froze. His wings unfolded completely. One made of shadow, one of pure light, and his eyes glowed like twin suns. "You are the past," he said, "and I am what the past birthed. You can't destroy what you made." He raised his hands, and from his palms, light and darkness fused together, not to destroy, but to cleanse. The remnants screamed, their forms dissolving into dust, their power returning to the world that had forgotten them. And when the silence returned, Severin and I stood behind him, proud, quiet, and unbroken. Severin's arm slipped around my waist. "He's more than either of us ever were." I smiled faintly. "He's everything we lost, and everything we dreamed." Arian turned toward us, smiling softly. "The world is balanced again." It was then I realized something. The bond that had started as a curse, born of a sacrifice and a cruel deal, had become something divine. Severin and I had defied gods, rewritten fate, and birthed a being who could end cycles instead of repeating them. As the night deepened, we stood together, the king of shadows, the one once sold, and the child of light and darkness. The family the universe had never intended, yet the one it desperately needed. And when Severin leaned in to whisper against my ear, his voice was low and eternal. "You were never my sacrifice, Arian. You were the reason even death surrendered." The stars above us burned brighter, bending slightly toward the realm that had defied every rule. the crown of the abyss shone again, not in darkness, not in pain, but in love that could never die.